So it's January 26th, 2026.
Mm.
And if you're listening to this on an iPhone, the device in your pocket has just undergone a fundamental personality transplant. We really have to talk about what just happened in Cupertino.
We do. Because for decades, Apple's entire identity, its whole religion, was built on this one principle. Vertical integration. They do it all themselves. Yeah. The hardware, the software, the silicon.
They own the widget end to end.
Yeah.
But today, that era is, well, it's effectively over. Apple has officially admitted it cannot win the AI war alone.
That is the headline, right? This isn't just a software update. It's a capitulation. The company that prides itself on technological sovereignty.
Never relying on anyone else for the core stuff.
Exactly. That company has just entered into a massive licensing deal with its biggest rival.
We're talking about Google.
The arch nemesis.
I mean, it's a marriage of convenience that feels a bit like a deal with the devil. Reports are confirming it. Google's Gemini models are now powering the brains of Apple's ecosystem.
Because Siri didn't just stumble.
No, she completely face-planted.
Face-planted is generous. Look, we're talking about a full-blown corporate crisis. And the mission of this deep dive is to unpack how. How did the wealthiest company in the world find itself backed into a corner where it had to, beg its rival for a brain?
Right. We're going to be looking at internal leaks, some failed negotiations with Anthropic.
And a talent drain to Meta that is, it's honestly shocking when you see the numbers.
To understand the why, we have to go back to the philosophy that led them right off the cliff. I was reading through reports on John Giandrea's tenure.
He's the SVP of AI until recently.
And the term that keeps coming up is hill climbing. It sounds so harmless, like a nice hike, but in computer science, it turned out to be a trap.
It's a trap.
Right.
So hill climbing is a specific optimization strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you're standing in a really thick fog, and you want to get to the highest point around you.
Okay.
You can't see the peak, so you take a step in whatever direction is steepest.
Right.
And you keep doing that, step, step, step. And eventually you're at the top of your hill.
So Giandrea's strategy for Siri was just to take what they had and make it, 2% faster, 5% more accurate.
Tiny incremental gains. But the problem with hill climbing is you can reach the summit of your little hill, the fog clears, and you realize you're standing on a mound of dirt.
Well, everyone else, OpenAI, Google has airlifted themselves to the top of Mount Everest.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
While Apple was polishing the stone of their old architecture, the intent-based logic, the manual templates, the rest of the industry had moved on. They moved to transformer-based architectures.
Let's just pause on that because it's so crucial. The way I get it is, Apple's old way was like memorizing a phrase book for a foreign language.
That's a great analogy.
If you ask exactly the right question, Siri could look it up and give you the answer. But if you went off script at all, she was just lost. Completely
lost. And transformer models, the tech behind ChatGPT and Gemini, that's like actually learning the grammar and vocabulary. You don't need the phrase book because you understand the underlying structure. You can improvise.
And Apple just kept trying to make the phrase book thicker.
For years, while Google was teaching the machine to actually speak.
And there's this agonizing anecdote from the engineering team about their hybrid architecture project. They were trying to bolt new AI features onto the old Siri code base.
Engineers called it whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole. You fix one bug in the language processing, and suddenly the alarm clock feature just breaks.
That is the definition of technical debt. The code was so brittle. And this all culminated in a meeting in March 2025 that it sets the whole emotional scene.
This is the Hawaii moment.
The Hawaii moment. Robbie Walker, the senior director for Siri, stood up in front of his staff people who had been crunching for months. And he said, "We swam hundreds of miles, but we didn't make it to Hawaii."
Ugh, it's such a devastating metaphor. Because if you swim hundreds of miles and don't make it to Hawaii, you don't just fail.
You drown.
You're alone in the middle of the Pacific.
And they drowned because of the math. We talk about parameters a lot, the connections in a model's brain. Apple was obsessed with running everything on device for privacy, for battery life. So they capped their internal models at around 150 billion parameters.
Which sounds like a lot,
But in this league, it's minor league. Google's Gemini 3, which Apple just licensed, operates at 1.2 trillion parameters.
You just can't bridge that gap.
You can't. It's like trying to win a Formula One race with a very, very polished go-kart. The physics just don't work.
So the go-kart crashed. John Giandrea is out long-term research role, which is...
Silicon Valley code for you're fired.
Right. And Craig Federighi takes the wheel. Now, this is fascinating because he's the face of Mac and iOS, but he was historically an AI skeptic.
A huge skeptic. There are stories that he once rejected a machine learning feature for the home screen because he thought it would disorient users. He wanted predictability.
If I click the button, the computer does the thing.
Exactly. He hated the whole black box nature of AI. But then, late 2022 happens. ChatGPT launches.
And like everyone else, he has a conversion moment. He realizes predictability is just another word for dumb.
He saw the writing on the wall. But here's where his personality really complicates things. Federighi is known internally as a massive penny pincher.
Which is so bizarre. We're talking about a company sitting on hundreds of billions in cash. Why does the guy holding the checkbook care about the cost of Cheez-Its?
It's about margin discipline. It's baked into Apple's DNA. But that fiscal conservatism directly influenced who they partnered with. Because before Google, they were deep in talks with Anthropic.
Who seem like the obvious cultural fit. They're the constitutional AI people. Safety, privacy, ethics.
They're Apple. On paper, yes. But in the negotiation room, it was disaster. Anthropic is a public benefit corporation. Their whole culture is built on being able to say no to the customer.
And Apple is used to suppliers who say, yes, sir, how high?
It is a power struggle. And a branding struggle. Anthropic wanted billions in guaranteed revenue, sure, but they also wanted credit. They wanted a powered by Claude badge on the iPhone.
Oh, no way Federighi would go for that.
He balked. He wasn't going to pay a premium price just to advertise another company's brand on his screen.
So they walk away from the ethical choice and turn right to the old enemy, to Google. Because Google was willing to do what Anthropic wouldn't be invisible, just be the engine in the background.
They agreed to a commercial licensing deal. Starts at $1 billion, scales up to $5 billion, and there is no Gemini logo anywhere. Google provides the raw intelligence. Apple skins it as Siri.
It's kind of amazing Google agreed to that, handing their best weapon to their biggest competitor.
Well, for Google, it's a distribution coup, right?
Yeah.
2 billion active devices. But for Apple, it's a terrifying admission of weakness. Think about the antitrust angle.
The DOJ is already seeing them over the search deal, the $20 billion a year deal.
And now they're doubling down. They are hugging the bomb while it's ticking.
I guess they just felt they had no choice. They needed a bridge because they couldn't build it themselves. Which, this brings us to the meta exodus.
This is the part of the story that really explains the why. You can buy servers, you can buy data, but you can't buy time. And apparently, you cannot keep the talent.
We have to talk about Rooming Pang. This guy was the architect of Apple's foundation model team, the one person who might have been able to build it for them.
And in July 2025, he left for Meta.
And he didn't leave because he liked the hoodie. He left for the package. I saw the number in the report, and I honestly thought it was a typo. $200 million.
It's a staggering number, $200 million, for one engineer. But here's my question. Apple has the money. They could pay that without blinking. Why let him walk? Because of the structure. Apple has these rigid salary bands. If you pay one engineer that much, you break the entire internal logic of the company. Federighi's cost-conscious culture. It just couldn't justify it.
But Meta.
Meta is run by a founder CEO who can write whatever check he wants. Zuckerberg saw the talent war as existential, and he paid up. Apple tried to play fair in a market that had gone completely insane.
And the result was a stampede. A dozen senior researchers followed Pang right out the door.
And now the people who know how to build these trillion parameter models are at Meta or OpenAI, not Apple Park.
So without the talent and with the old tech failing, they had to outsource. But this outsourcing strategy hits a massive wall when you look at a map.
Specifically China.
Right. Google is banned in China. OpenAI is banned. Apple sells millions of iPhones there. They can't just ship a dumb phone to their second biggest market.
So they split the ecosystem. This is the China compromise.
Yeah.
If you buy an iPhone in New York, the intelligence is Google. If you buy one in Shanghai,
It's Alibaba and Baidu.
but it's not just a vendor swap. The actual functionality of the device changes.
Drastically great.
Drastically. Alibaba provides an on-device layer that acts specifically as a censorship engine. It's designed to strictly follow the rules from the Cyberspace Administration of China.
The report I read used the phrase lobotomizing the phone.
That's the technical reality. The device has a local filter. If the phone detects its censorship model is outdated,
Yeah.
say you haven't downloaded the latest list of banned keywords, The AI features just disable themselves.
Wow.
The phone effectively lobotomizes its own intelligence to make sure it doesn't accidentally answer a question about Taiwan.
It's dystopian. The smart part of the smartphone is now conditional on political compliance.
And it hurt them commercially. Getting these approvals from Beijing took months. The features were delayed. Meanwhile, Huawei and Xiaomi had their AI running on day one.
Okay, so it's a defensive war. Censorship in China, renting a brain from Google in the West. But they do have an offensive plan. Let's talk about what they are building. Project Campos and World Knowledge Answers.
Right, so Project Campos is the code name for the new user experience. Think of Campos as the mouth, the conversational layer that replaces the old Siri.
And the brain behind it is World Knowledge Answers, or WKA. I love the ambition of that name. It sounds like they want to kill Google search.
That is explicitly the goal.
Yeah.
WKA is an answer engine. Instead of 10 blue links, it uses a planner, a searcher, and a summarizer to just give you the answer.
Like what Perplexity does.
Exactly like that. But to do it, you have to go to the cloud. And Apple has spent 10 years telling us what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. How do they square that circle?
With something they call private cloud compute, or PCC.
And the tech is actually pretty impressive. They're using what are called stateless servers.
Okay, stateless. For the non-engineers listening, what does that actually mean?
Think of it like writing with disappearing ink. When your data hits the server to get processed, it only exists in memory for a split second. Once the answer is sent back, the power to that memory block is cut.
The data vanishes.
It's never written to a hard drive. It can't be subpoenaed because it doesn't exist anymore.
So the probability of a breach is supposed to be near zero.
The math is solid, but there is a catch. The weakest link isn't the server, it's the partner. If Apple sends your query to Google's Gemini model, and Google has a clause in the contract that says, we need to retain 1% of queries for debugging, then the stateless promise is broken.
And knowing Google, data is their oxygen. It's hard to imagine them agreeing to a deal where they learn nothing.
Exactly. Privacy advocates are terrified that this invisible Google partnership is a Trojan horse that just bypasses all the protections of PCC. So looking at the board, Apple is renting a brain from Google, building a privacy shield that might have holes. But there are these external threats. We have to talk about the sweet pea rumor. This is the ghost of Apple past coming back to haunt them. Sir Jony Ive, the man who designed the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone.
And he's teamed up with Sam Altman at OpenAI.
To build a new hardware device, codenamed Sweet Pea.
And this isn't just another phone.
No. The whole premise is that the smartphone is obsolete. It's an always listening AI wearable. The idea is you shouldn't have to poke at a glass screen to get things done.
Yeah.
You just speak.
It sounds like the movie Her. But why is this such a specific threat to Apple?
Because Apple's entire empire is built on the screen. The App Store, the ecosystem, the attention economy. It all relies on you looking at the device.
And if Jony Ive and Sam Altman succeed in making the screen secondary?
If the AI is good enough that I don't need to look at my phone, Apple's business model starts to crumble.
And they are poaching.
Aggressively. Over 40 Apple hardware engineers, including Evans Hankey, who was the industrial design lead after Jony left, they are rebuilding the Apple design team outside of Apple.
Wow. So you have the former soul of Apple's design teamed up with the current king of AI trying to kill the iPhone.
While Apple is busy trying to tape Google's brain onto Siri, it really puts the stakes in perspective.
There's also that acquisition rumor. The $14 billion check for Perplexity AI.
Yes. That's the backup plan. If the DOJ kills the Google search deal, Apple needs an answer engine stack overnight. Buying Perplexity gives them that, but it just shows how reactive they've become.
Buying and partnering because they can't just build and dominate anymore.
Right.
So let's bring this all together. We started with the date, January 26, 2026, the day vertical integration died.
I think that's the narrative. Apple stalled on innovation because of a philosophical error, that hill climbing. They lost the talent war to Meta because of a cultural rigidity on pay and to save the product.
They were forced into this marriage of convenience with Google. It feels like a loss of sovereignty.
It is. For the first time, the most critical part of the user experience, the intelligence, is not Apple's. Apple is becoming a high-margin distribution channel for Google's models in the West and Baidu's models in China. The magic isn't in the silicon anymore.
It's in the model, and they don't own the model.
That's a sobering realization. The iPhone is still a beautiful object, but the ghost in the machine belongs to someone else.
And that leads to the really uncomfortable question for the future.
Yeah.
Here's the thought I want to leave you with. If Jony Ive's Sweet Pea device actually works, if it makes the screen less important, and if Google owns the intelligence inside the iPhone, what exactly does Apple have left to sell us, besides a really, really nice glass rectangle?
That is the trillion-dollar question.
We'll be watching to see if Apple can build that bridge back to independence, or if they're just paying tolls on Google's highway forever. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.